Okay.
I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Burlington Area School District Board of Education. And would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and
to
to
the
the
republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
with liberty and
indivisible,
justice for all.
with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Toby, the roll call, please.
Roseanne Hahn,
Here.
Kevin Bird, Susan Kessler,
Here.
Peter Turk,
Here.
Mary Schmeling,
Here.
Diane Wood,
Here,
Taylor Wishaw.
here,
Thank you.
Okay. Next will be the approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes.
second, Taylor,
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the last meeting. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, roll call, please.
Roseanne?
Yes.
Kevin? Susan? Peter?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Diane?
yes,
Taylor?
yes,
Susan, you're muted.
Yes.
Kevin, where are you? You were there.
I'm here. I'm here.
Did you? All right, good. All right, so next we'll go into communications. And Steve asked that this be turned over to him. So Steve, I'll turn this over to you.
Thank you, Roseanne. Yes, I did want to alert all of our listeners this evening with a couple of reminders. One is that, again, all board comments can be directed via email to the board. That email address is boardcomments with an S, boardcomments @basd.k12.wi.us. We do ask that if you do send an email to the board, that you include your name and address, and that you keep those comments to a length that can be read in approximately 3 minutes or less. And then just simply ask that you recognize that all 7 board members do receive those emails and that they are reading them. This past month, since our last meeting in January, the board did receive 6 emails, and 5 of them were about a personnel question, and 1 was about a policy-based question. And so there were 6 this month. And again, we would welcome you to send those to board comments at basd.k12.wi.us.
Okay. Anything else, Steve?
Nope, that's it. Other just board communication.
Okay, board members, do you have anything? Peter?
I thought this was interesting. You may have received this in the mail, but I'll hold it up to my camera here. It's a mailer I got from Lake Geneva School District. Maple Park is opening a charter school. So in case you didn't get that, I thought I'd alert you. It's interesting how, neighboring school districts are advertising, other options. And it was a little hard to understand from reading the material what exactly the program is. It looked like some kind of hybrid between virtual and in person, but I'm putting it out there because I know we've talked about as a board, the enrollment in, enrollment out. Here's an example of a neighboring district sending material to Burlington to say, here, we have this option.
I think it's kind of like the Montessori option we have. Okay, I have just one. I don't know, I told you quite a while ago, but I've been appointed to the Professional Standards Council. And this is a group from Madison. And we work at the DPI, and I had to be approved by the Senate to be on this committee. Anyway, we met, and thank you, Toby, for doing Zoom. It's so much better than Google Meet. But anyway, we're working on Wisconsin Talent Development Framework Strategic Plan Recommendations. Ooh. But what we're working on is and we've talked about this on our board, but the retention of teachers is so critical today. And so many teachers are just teaching a couple years and leaving the profession. And thank goodness Burlington has not seen that, but other districts have. So they're hoping that within our school districts that teachers can have a little bit more participation. And that was the main thing about it. But it was very interesting. And to find out the WEA is very vocal at that meeting. So to the point where they might even think that we should have somebody on the board from there. So anyway, it's interesting. So that was my communication I wanted to share with you. Okay,
Okay.
Anyone else? Barry.
Yeah, and I think Steve will touch more on this a little bit later, but as head of the Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation Committee, I wanted to thank all the districts that reached out to us last week during our crisis with the busing system. Again, I believe Steve will go more into that, but it's really great to have those communities recognize our need and reach out and offer to help us stay on track. And kudos to Thomas for getting themselves back on track so quickly and hardly any loss of school time at all for us. So it was really well handled, I thought.
It was well handled. In fact, Liz kind of said, I talked to her and she said, I think I could have got everybody going that very day, but the fire department said we couldn't run over their hoses and everything hadn't been checked. But she wanted to compliment Ruth, especially on all the help she gets from the Burlington district. So I too agree that people who stepped in to help, it was wonderful. And I think that Liz and her group would have done it if it had been somebody else that had the same problem. Okay, anybody else? Okay, then we'll go into the superintendent's report.
It's a great segue, and I think to Barry's point, I'll pick up right where you left off. Did want to acknowledge both Liz and Bob from Thomas Bus and express our appreciation to them for just their quick and rapid response, for their partnership with the school district, and for their immense care in ensuring that we were taken care of, so that shortly after such a tragic fire and loss that they experienced, within really a matter of hours, we knew we were going to be up and running the next day. And so kudos to them, certainly. And in light of what Barry mentioned, I do think it's important that the board know that whether it was Racine Unified and Eric Allen or Marty McGinley from Wheatland, we had folks reach out to us almost immediately, at 7 o'clock that morning, saying, hey, we can help, we have resources, we're partners in this with you. And I just want to point that out, because those are special moments where we sort of all coexist in this work to support our communities and kids, and to have other folks recognize when you're in a bind and reach out immediately. It certainly is very, very thoughtful. I also, as part of the superintendent's report, would ask for maybe a few minutes longer than usual, so that I can just kind of share a little bit of a reflection about what is seemingly become our new world. And I would offer to the board that it's a world that requires patience, as we're all learning, and it's one that can be very, very difficult. And I plan to share a similar message with our staff for their in-service this Friday. But wanted to kind of mention that, following nearly now a year of navigating this incredibly challenging reality that's been brought to us by this global pandemic, and it's been forced upon us to adjust, following also a summer that was fraught with civil unrest and unease. I find that we're now kind of grappling with our own feelings that might stretch from things like sadness to frustration to even outrage or confusion, as well as the oftentimes very intense feelings of those with whom we work and spend time with. I can say that prior to March of this past year, the district, I don't believe, had ever received a formal discrimination complaint. Since January of 2020, we've received 4. Each of these complaints, of course, is something that we take very seriously, requires a significant amount of time, oftentimes involves attorneys, and it frankly diverts us away from other urgent tasks, most namely our work to serve all students. As you know, addressing issues around equity and diversity have become a priority, certainly since I started with the district as superintendent approximately 18 months ago. Equity and diversity has taken on an even greater urgency, just simply due to the needs of not only our Burlington community, but also in light of civil unrest in our nation and in our surrounding communities. This coming Friday, just a few days from now, the district is happy to be on the receiving end of Reggie Jackson and Gail Dubuque de Clark, who are going to speak to our staff as a keynote for our in-service about unconscious bias with a program titled, Can You See Your Blind Spots? That same presentation we are excited to share is going to be offered to the community at 6 p.m. on March 2nd. We're also, as you know, one of 10 districts in the country actively participating in the Leading for Equity Redesign Network program with National Equity Project. It's no doubt partnerships like this, along with others, such as our work with Payne and Fraser Consulting and the Jewish Federation's Hours Against Hate Listening Library, and other similar initiatives around equity that bring diverse viewpoints and new ideas to our district. The drive for student equity is a priority, and it must be evident in all that we do at the district level. In fact, 1/5 of all of our students are minorities. There are 126 students identified as English language learners. Our latest report card from the Department of Public Instruction in 2018-2019 reports that 16.1% of our students have special needs and 34.3% are economically disadvantaged. In fact, last year alone, we had 83 homeless students. These are facts that frankly too easily can be overlooked when people simply look at Burlington. This time of year usually causes us to stay kind of extra alert to changing weather conditions. And as you know, we had a traditional snow day on January 26th. There was also the school closure we just talked about on February 2nd due to the fire at Thomas Bus Service. And I just want to let everybody know, kind of depending on circumstances, if we have to experience any other closures this year, we do plan to now use virtual learning for additional time with our students. This year, we've also had high-profile personnel matters and numerous public and media requests. To gain a small understanding of the work that is entailed when we get a request, a single public records request may ask for upwards of a dozen or more items. Sometimes each of those items can generate between 50 to 100 folders worth of content, and each folder sometimes containing, at least in one instance just recently, some 600 plus files that have to be read and redacted as appropriate. To say that this requires an inordinate amount of time would be an understatement. Certainly, while I understand the desire for information that individuals may have about anything that was going on within the Burlington Area School District, it's also noteworthy that we simply do not always have the human resources or other capacity to address crisis upon crisis upon crisis without something else sacrificing. All of this work is being done while navigating how to deliver education in a completely new hybrid instructional model during a pandemic. The hybrid instructional model has, as we believe, contained the number of positive cases that we've experienced And yet in the first 5 weeks of this second semester, we've experienced 40 positive cases. And we've had to move all of Waller Elementary School to virtual learning. Meanwhile, given our care for the health of our employees, we've also launched a new wellness plan, and we are in constant contact with Central Racine County Health Department to learn when vaccines will be available, of which 70% of our staff have said they would be willing to get as soon as they're offered. So to Diane's earlier question, we have our fingers crossed sooner than later. If asked a year ago, what would be the most urgent work in 2021, I would have very naively replied, it's the work around completing the district's longstanding goals associated with the 2018 referendum. That work is progressing too. We've made decisions around how to best staff our 5 elementary schools. We have letters going out just next week to each family sharing what school their elementary school student will attend. And we are very close to, of course, opening the new Karcher Middle School to serve students in grades 6 through 8, which is going to be amazing. And you're going to hear lots about that yet this evening. These are things we can be celebrating that is being done to make our schools safer and better for all students. Further, I'd be remiss to not mention that in the last year, we've also revised all policies, started the same revision process for administrative guidelines, launched a compensation committee, and really the list could go on. The reason I'm sharing this, however, is that while we take each project or challenge one at a time, I wanted to just take a couple of minutes to reflect on the whole. I wanted to share how proud I am of all of the Burlington Area School District staff who have and continue to go above and beyond to serve kids. People choose a career in education because they are drawn to serve students. I wanted to be a superintendent because I'm drawn to the service, the social justice, and the desire to be an advocate for all kids. The staff in the Burlington Area School District wake up each and every day ready to serve with everything they have to offer. They are working tirelessly and are exhausted and frankly losing patience. So if you have an opportunity to share a kind word during this extraordinary year, just know that it would be greatly appreciated. It's now more than ever that it's critical that as a district, we stand united, we stand strong and resolute for our community. Sometimes and often in the face of difference, uncertainty, strife, or even turmoil, we must continue to be explicit and intentional about embracing, understanding, grace, hope, and love for everything we do and for each other. And so I just wanted to say thank you to the board for what I know has been a long run for you. I wanted to highlight some of the things that we've been doing and have going on, and just take a moment to share sort of the state of affairs, if you will. And with that, I also would add, as is typical in any of my reports, just a few upcoming dates. We do have this week, Thursday, we'll be continuing with our work around Neola and our administrative guidelines. This is particularly in the area of human resources. Friday, as I just mentioned, we are welcoming Reggie Jackson from Nurturing Diversity to our staff in service. Next week and the following week, both February 15th and 22nd, are our Payne and Fraser cohorts. Depending on which cohort you're in, it's either module 2 or 3. And then we will, as you know, on March 1st, kick off our compensation committee with our full group, including those of you that are serving on that committee, as well as Bob Butler from the Wisconsin Association of School Boards. And then just as a final plug, on March 2nd, Tuesday, March 2nd, we'll be advertising to the community for anybody that may want to join us for a session with Reggie Jackson as well. So that's it for me, Roseanne. Thank you for the extra little bit of time here this evening.
Well, thank you very much for all your information there. It has been quite a year. But I don't know how you collect all of that, and that has to take hours. Okay, next, Peter, we're going to talk about the business, bank statements and bills.
Sure. No, thanks, Roseanne. For the month of January 2021, we had total deposits, $10,004,786.20, leaving cash on hand of $10,091,727.42. Withdrawals were $9,689,227.76. Leaving at the end of the month a cash on adjusted bank balance of $402,499.66. And I'd like to make a motion to approve the bank statement.
Do I hear a second?
Second, Taylor.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the bank statements. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Toby?
Roseanne,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Okay, now the bills.
Yeah, also in January, we wrote a total of 78 checks in the collective amount of $1,942,909.45. And I'd make a motion that we pay the bills for January.
Second, Barry.
It's been moved and seconded that we pay the bills. Any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor? Toby?
Roseanne,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we go into personnel.
Actually, Roseanne, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Yeah, Ruth contacted me and I'd like to ask if we can have Ruth give us a short statement. Well, I shouldn't say short, that's up to Ruth, but a short discussion about the defeasance project. We had talked about this earlier, about paying down part of our debt early.
Yes.
Would that be okay now, Roseanne?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Go, Ruth.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. It's just a quick little teaser for next month's board meeting, actually. If you remember back in October, we were able to keep our levy flat and at the same time levy a little bit extra for our debt service. That will allow us to defease or prepay some debt. So we've been working with Baird to actually now make that happen. So at the March board meeting, we will be bringing more information to you about that. And we'll ask you to approve one of those parameter resolutions where we say, not to exceed like a certain interest rate, or give them the guidelines that we're willing to accept to have that act on that debt. At this point, it looks like we have an approximately 600,000 extra we were able to levy there, anticipating that is going to save us over $200,000 in the long run. So I'd say that's a pretty good rate of return. So just wanted to make really just a kind of that quick mention to know that we're going to be asking for action on that at the next month's board meeting. So thank you.
Thank you for the good information. Anyone have a question about that to Ruth? What we're talking about it. Okay, well, thank you, Ruth, and thank you, Peter. All right, now we'll move on to personnel. Okay,
The
Kevin?
personnel committee met earlier today, and we moved that we have 3 personnel resignation, retirements, and terminations, and we unanimously approve those. And I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we accept the resignation, retirements, and terminations of certified personnel. Any discussion? Yeah, all in favor? Toby?
Roseanne,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes,
Susan,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Diane,
I believe there were only two, though. Is that correct?
no, there was three.
Oh, there's
Oh, no,
three.
you're right. There was two. I'm sorry, there was three. You're right.
Okay.
Jerome and
Yeah.
Donovan.
Taylor.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, now the appointments.
We had 3 appointments this evening that the Personnel Committee approved unanimously. And I'll make a motion that we approve, as the Personnel Committee did, those appointments.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we okay the certified staff appointments. Any discussion?
I would just say that we have a great assistant leader in Jill Oschlager, and we're excited for her opportunities. We're going to greatly miss Connie, but I think we have a great opportunity here.
You're right. Thank you.
Looking forward to it.
And if I may as well, I didn't do this before, and Connie can't throw anything at me through the computer. But I just would like to very personally thank Connie. In her role, there is no other person who can help a superintendent transition into a school district than somebody who's caring and compassionate and student-driven in the way that Connie is. And I can't thank her enough for helping me sort of get the lay of the land of the Burlington Area School District. And after 35 years of working here, she will not only be sorely missed by lots and lots of folks, but will be missed by me as well. And so I just want to congratulate Connie as I see her off on my screen. And then to also pivot, because she would be mad if I didn't, to welcome Jill into this role after 17 years of working in the district in a variety of different capacities, and the different leadership style that Jill brings to a focus that's going to help us continue to do the work that we're already on path to do. She will take the baton from Connie. She will also keep me in line, I have no doubt, as Connie has as well. But Jill really does, she's a gifted individual. There's so much of our work around student diagnostics that wouldn't exist if it weren't for Jill. And we want to keep that talent here in the Burlington Area School District. And so as I look at Jill on my screen, I'd like to also offer her my very personal congratulations, as well as the board officially approves that here momentarily.
Okay, I think the whole board feels the same. Thank you.
Amazing ladies, that's for sure.
That's right. And welcome to Jill, and thank you so much for Connie. Okay, then I guess we have a vote on that.
Thank you, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Hey, Roseanne,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Next, we'll move into the district consent items. So the first are the donations.
Yep, like any month, this is a happy time, certainly in the agenda, because of the amazing generosity of the community. Bejazzled this month was the recipient of 4 different donations to the tune of a combined $885. 2 of them were anonymous. And then one came for $100 from Thomas and Barbara Scherber, and then $300 donation from Fred's Parkview Incorporated. And then, as we come to expect, the campaign for WBSD is always going strong. 12 donations to WBSD in $250 increments this month. Bar and Cadlick Ltd, Schuett Daniels Incorporated, Anderson Chiropractic Office, Todd Green, Burlington Community Pool, Perfection Audio Incorporated, and at $350 this month, Subway Sandwich and Salads, Bubba's Brickyard, and then at $500, Fred's Parkview Incorporated, Thrivent from Scott Herman, Burlington Area Chamber of Commerce, and CNN Drywall and Painting, for a grand total of $4,200 of support to WBSD. And then finally, at Winkler Elementary School, there was a $500 donation from Sukov Enterprises, and that came from Honey Tree Mobile Gas Station, which many of you are familiar with. So in total, that $5,585 this past month, I would ask for your accepting of those generous donations.
I move we approve these very generous donations.
Second.
So moved and seconded that we accept these very generous donations to the Burlington High School and Winkler. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor. Toby, would you read the roll?
Roseanne,
Yes.
Kevin,
yes,
Susan,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Diane,
yes,
Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next on the agenda is informational things, and the first is the WASB convention review, and I think I'm going to start with that because I'd like to say how it started and I'll talk about the general speakers and a few other things, and then we'll let everybody else fill in too. I was very, very proud that at the very beginning, when it opened up, there stood our Burlington a cappella choir in the Burlington High School and sang the most beautiful rendition of the Star Spangled Banner. It just brought tears to my eyes. And later on, when we had the review, my committee in Madison, that was the first thing that was brought up, how beautiful that was. So it certainly put Burlington on the map. The first speaker in the first day was Donald Driver. And if you live in Wisconsin, I'm sure you know who he is. Very inspirational. He was kind of a lot of fun, had a few laughs, but he came from a very, very poor background. And I think he showed that, you know, by hard work and just keep trying that you can make it. And I think it was a good message for all of us and to talk to other people about. He was wonderful. He was homeless and he suffered a lot of poverty as he was growing up. The second speaker was Ana Marie Chavez, and she's an expert on women's leadership. She's talked a lot about the development of youth programs. She's spent 25 years of public service in nonprofit leadership. Very interesting, and I thought the format was interesting in this one, the general speaker, because John Ashley asked questions and then she responded to the questions. Very well done, and I think it worked out well because we're just looking at a screen. We didn't get to see her moving across the stage. The third one opened with Governor Evers, and it lasted only a very short time. As far as I was concerned, he was very tired. I think he'd been working a lot, but he really wished everybody to have a wonderful year. He thanked everybody on school boards for the good work that they do. And then a couple of things that I watched. I don't know, somehow I got interested in the Indians because they're kind of a forgotten group in our state. So I went to 2 sessions on the Indian tribes in Wisconsin. And one of them was fascinating. He had a big map, and he showed if they drew around all the Indian tribes in the United States, it was in the shape of a turtle. But the heart of the turtle was Wisconsin. So he was very interesting. And he's an Indian person, he taught. And now he's been hired by the DPI. I think he's been there about 3 years. And he goes around to school districts that need a little help in setting up units or anything like that on the Indians. He talked about Lac de Flambeau, the Lake of Fire, and very interesting. And, you know, sometimes these are the schools that don't have broadband and so forth, but very up. I went to another one, Honoring Student Voice, which was interesting, but they had a lot of technical difficulties. And 2 of the books that they recommended that maybe our kids could read, I wouldn't have anybody read them. They're so full of bad words, but maybe other schools are different. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say. And one other thing, when I came, if you're on the committee that I'm on, when the convention is over, you have to go to the exhibitors and find out just what did you think of the convention. Well, the people that I was supposed to talk to didn't come forth. So I went ahead and went to PRA and got to talk to Mr. Kent, and he just loved it. But boy, he has so many good things to say about Burlington. And of course, I had to have a lot of nice things to say about the design of the buildings and so forth. So that was nice. And I also talked to Cher. And you know, that building is so beautiful, and everything's going together, as Dan knows. It's just beautiful. It's nice to talk to him. And then I also talked to Lisa Voisin from Bayard. So anyway, it was good. So I'll let somebody else. Who else wants to go next?
I'll go next.
Okay, Susan.
So it was a different convention. It was all virtual, first of all. And I think that we're all so used to Zoom meetings now. You know, it was just different than being in person. But it was good. I think they did it very well. What I really liked about it was that you could go to a session, but then you could always go back. You know, sometimes when you're in person, you can only go, of course, you can only go to one section, session at a time. But now you can go back because they're all pre-recorded. So if you really are interested in another session, you can go back. I really do like that recording part of it. Yeah, and just being live, like some of the general sessions, you know, like we're used to having a lot of people around us, and the people up on the stage kind of get that energy, and that wasn't there. But I think for a virtual convention, I think they did a very, very good job. I'll talk to you a little bit about the delegate assembly. Everything passed. All of the ones that we went through, everything passed. They did add one little section in on the 1 cent sales tax that we talked about. And that was for school infrastructure. It was for technology. It was for tax relief. What they added in was a section that the new funding would be protected from future governments redirecting it. Because we thought, we did talk about how do we know if the funds are going to go to the schools? Well, they did add that in, saying that there would have to be a supermajority of both the state assembly and the state senate if they want to overturn the legislation. So that was just kind of a protective measure, and that was passed. The one about school safety legislation, at the delegate assembly, we added in some language in that one, and that was to allow prosecutors to bring appropriate charges against anyone who would threaten or give false information or attempt to create great bodily harm. That was taken out. When we put it in, it was presented, and then that was taken out. A lot of talk too about, amendment after amendment after amendment. A lot of people wanted to pass this, but they wanted to take out the section about hiring SROs. They really didn't like that section, even though it's just a suggestion. You don't have to do it. They still wanted it just out of there. But it passed anyway, because this honestly was just like a bit of a modification of a resolution we already have. So those were a couple of things. There was some talk about the confidential superintendent evaluations. A lot of talk about that I really didn't think there'd be so much talk, but there was. Some people thought for transparency, it should not be confidential. It should be available, but it did pass the confidential evaluations. So that's what the delegate assembly was. It was an awesome experience to see all these resolutions and how they came about and how they changed. And it was a really, really good learning experience for me. So on to the next person. Thank you.
Peter or Barry?
I'll go. I enjoyed the fact that it was pre-recorded, or you could pick and choose. And that was the silver lining of meeting virtually. I get the downsides of you miss some of the energy and some of the other positives of the in-person convention. I'd love to see in the future, though, if they record all the sessions. So if you couldn't attend a day or you couldn't attend at all, you could still watch them, or you could catch, if there's two at the same time that you may want to watch. If I only knew somebody at the WASB who had some pull, I'd mention that. So
Think about it.
I'll highlight one session I saw of half a dozen that I thought was really well done. Was the Kettle Moraine School District did a session on passing an operating referendum. And I thought they did a really good job of laying out, here's what happened. They had one fail, and then they came back and did another one, and lessons they learned. And I thought it was a good practical discussion about what worked and what didn't for their district, and how they went about laying it out for the public and then passing it.
Very good. Barry.
So I focused the majority of what I visited around equity. There were a couple sessions on equity that were interesting to hear the different aspects. I got to offer a little bit about what Burlington is doing to some of the other communities, because they asked what we're up to. And I explained what we were doing there. One of the interesting comments was that it seemed like there were a lot of people out in the lobby that could use the training. So I thought that was funny. I also attended the same conference as Peter on the operating referendum. And there was some good communication ones as well. I think I attended one of those with Steve. So it was a good conference. I understand some people would rather have the in-person sessions. I really like the ability to go back and hit the sessions I couldn't get, because as Peter said, and as Roseanne said, you're one person, you can't get to everything. You got to kind of pick and choose and hope someone else can bring back the other information. Well, this year we get to spend the whole year going back and revisiting those topics. So lots of learning to be had yet.
The only thing, Steve and I were talking, it's difficult because when you come out of a session and, oh my goodness, here you met somebody you haven't seen for a while, and you start to talk, and the next thing you know, you've talked through the whole next session. But what you got out of that person was just as important as a session a lot of times, because there's a lot of good networking done. But we're hopeful for next year. Keep your fingers crossed that all will go well. Well, thank you all for thinking about it.
Roseanne, if I may, I think the board might find it somewhat interesting that John Ashley, Executive Director for Wisconsin Association of School Boards, more for the listeners, clarification. John met with superintendents last week, and of his primary concerns were, what are we going to do now? Because I think that there was an impression early on that having a virtual conference would not go well. People wouldn't like it. They'd be upset about it. And sort of to the contrary, with something like 1,200 attendees and most of the feedback being really positive for some of the reasons that you all just gave, I think there's a lot of question about what the future of conferences look like. How do you blend what's perhaps the silver lining in what we just experienced with that kind of energy of being in person? To Susan's point, I mean, heard lots of wonderful things about the delegate assembly and the debate that ensued there. I'm spot on with Peter. I thought Kettle Moraine did a great job. The one that Barry and I were in with Elmbrook for communications was fantastic. And I shared with Roseanne that I counted up a total of 17 sessions that I attended in the 3.5 days. And I can admit to you, I have never accomplished that feat because I start talking to people and before you know it, you miss something. And so there really is a new sort of tension of how do we move forward when there is a level of effectiveness here that is really, truly impressive. And so it was a great conference for me. It was wonderful that I got to see and share a couple sessions with some of you. And it will be very fascinating to see what the rebuilding process looks like as we move forward. So
we start in 2 weeks. So, okay. Anyone else have anything else you want to add to the convention? Okay, I thought it was excellent. All right. Okay, the next thing we're going into is a professional, not administrative staff compensation committee process. And this is with Bob Butler. You want to take that on, Steve, and talk about that?
Sure. So I think probably 4 or 5 of you, if my memory serves correct, were at our work session with Bob where we talked about this committee. And there were some questions both posed by board members as well as kind of the big idea from Bob that, you know, if you're going to start building a house, you need to start with your budget and know kind of where you go from there. And so Ruth did as she promised and collected, I believe, 5 different documents for your review. And I think Ruth was just going to give you a little summary of each one so you knew what you were looking at. And then whatever conversation might ensue from there, great. We're not meeting in February, our first committee meeting to begin to establish, you know, what lies ahead would be on March 1st. So Ruth, if you want to go ahead and kind of just share what you put together, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. And I apologize that some of these aren't a little more pretty, but it was kind of the behind the scenes data tracking that we do. So we just kind of share those out as they are. I think I kind of have them in the order that they are in board docs there. So the first one says health insurance history, and then the upper left-hand corner, it says base plan. So this is as far back as I could track as far as our actual health plans that we have. So on the left-hand side kind of shows the deductible and the prescription copays. In the more recent years, last, I guess, 8 or 9 years, we've had high deductible plans. If you're not familiar how those operate, the employee pays dollar for dollar up to that deductible, and then the plan kicks in after that. So there are no copays as such like in the traditional plans, because it's just dollar for dollar until you hit that deductible. Kind of then in the middle of the page is where the year is, and it's kind of in an odd place just because it has to do with how I had to lay out the data for it to show up in the graph down below. So kind of in the middle of the page there is the year. You'll kind of note 2 different designations there, either a 1 or 2. So the 1 in parentheses there is a year we would have had a carrier change. And then kind of on the far right-hand side is the actual carrier. So you can see usually WA or Humana. We had Group Health Trust a couple years. And then in the ones that have a 2 notated, those were years where we had a plan design change. So probably most typically a deductible. Probably one big year was going from a low deductible plan to a high deductible plan. So again, that's kind of the history there on the left. I did only list the family plan, so just know that the single plan would have a similar percentage change in plan. That it's not usually too far off. The second page for the last, I don't know, 8 or 9 years, we've had offered 2 different plans. So we've had what we called a base plan, and then if people wanted a lower deductible plan, they could pay the difference in premium to buy down to that lower deductible. So we creatively called that the buy-up plan. So those are those 2 different options. The third page actually had 1 year we did have a third plan offering. It was a PPO plan. So that was just that 1 year. Otherwise, we've had 2 plans for the last several years. Other than this year, we went back down to 1 plan again. And then that graph just shows historically the total cost of the annual family premium. So it's kind of interesting to note that, you know, where we are now is same as, about 2008-9. But if you look at 2008-9, the deductible was only $150 for a single plan or $200 for a family plan. We are now at 5,000 and 10,000. So such is the world of health insurance, I guess. Any clarifying questions on that? Okay. The second document, it says history of health insurance. So it has a bunch of dollar amounts all the way back to 2013-14. It's probably more meaningful to look at the graph on the second page. And this graph is one we've shown for several years at the annual meeting. Yeah, so this is one you've seen before. This is now from looking at the total cost to the district in 1 year. So all the employees together, what is that budget for health insurance? So again, if you look at the 2021 budget, is approximately $5 million, similar to 2011-12. So the trend, kind of goes up and down, but realize again that we've made plan design changes and carrier changes to kind of keep that cost under control. Okay. Any questions on that one? The third one, let's see, what is it called in here? Teacher scattergram. This is a document we've looked at before when we talk about negotiations. So know that this is not negotiations right now. It's just the same format. The top third of the page is the existing teacher salary schedule. That middle section where it says BASD FTE, I think that's the piece that you were most interested in last time, shows where everybody kind of falls on that salary schedule. So for example, BA step 1, we have 14 people that are placed there. When there's like a decimal that's reflecting like, so if you look at BA step 3 where it's 4.8444, we have one person that's an 84% contract. So it's FTEs, not necessarily bodies. And then, so I guess you can just kind of see where everybody is there. The MA plus 36, step 9, that is the very top of the scale. Approximately a third of our people are there. And then the bottom third, the salary schedule costing, that's simply taking the top section, the salary schedule, multiply that times the middle section, the number of FTE to get the total cost. So that's about $16 million for salary cost for certified staff. Any questions on that one? And I think there's two different longevity spreadsheets, but I think those are pretty self-explanatory. It's got the names and how many years of service, or maybe a grouping of by decades, how many are in each category. So
Thanks, Ruth.
I had on my list from last time to gather for data for you.
I will say that one of the things the board was, I think, kind of curious about, that middle section of FTE and where do people fall. And Ruth pointed out the masters plus 36 area, that out of roughly 243 FTE, that about 116 fall there. But then if you look at our longevity report, how long people have been in the district, this is where you start to see the tension that 123 people 0 to 10 years, 73 people from 11 to 20, 46 from 21 to 30, and then only 6. And so when you think about how long or how quickly potentially people are getting to the MA 36, that's just one of those realities that is expensive. And, at the same time, it's wonderful to have people who are advanced and really doing, a great job instructionally, you'd hope as well. So that's just some of that information, but certainly if there's questions for Ruth or I right now, we'd be all ears, but this hopefully begins to at least lay out for you some of the finances that you maybe were curious about.
Anyone have a question or a comment?
I'll just say I think this information you provided, Ruth, is fantastic. Thank you.
Diane?
And Taylor beat me to it. I just want to say thank you. It's easy to follow. It's the information we asked for. I feel much better prepared. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth.
And just tacking on to exactly what they said, I believe I had requested this information originally, and I really appreciate the effort that went into it, and it clears a lot of things up for us, I think. So thank you.
You're welcome.
The board appreciates you, Ruth. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, then we'll move into the items for action. And the first one is the elementary and middle school trimester proposal. And I think we're going to hear from Jill on this.
Yeah, I think Roseanne, if I may, Jill, just before she gets going, is like one of these, she maybe feels like she's tiptoeing into her future role. But I really want to point out that as the Karcher Middle School principal, Jill's done a tremendous job in both walking the staff there through what is sort of an emotional journey of building a new building. And Jill has worked with Dan, hand in glove. They've been quite the partnership, which we could talk more about later. But behind the scenes, very quietly, Jill has been leading the Karcher Middle School staff in some very, very deep discussions about what Karcher Middle School is going to look like from a teaching and learning perspective. What is the schedule going to look like? How do we work with and engage kids and families? How do we set the culture of the building on a positive trajectory? And how do we make sure that the curriculum and the course offerings that kids get can be accessible by everyone? And so I just want to kind of set that up, knowing that Jill's going to have the floor here for a little bit, but make sure that the board understands, this is many, many months worth of work, and here it is, kind of for your eyes and for your ears to follow along. So Jill, it's all yours, and thank you.
Yeah, thanks. All right, I am going to share my screen as I have a presentation to show you. You can all see that, right?
Yep.
Okay. So the first thing is, so everything that I'm going to go over throughout this time frame is here listed here. So the first thing is like Steve had said, the work behind what our 6-8 team has been working on. What are our knowns and priorities? That's kind of how we've been talking as a team in order to guide all of the work that we do revolving around the new middle school. And then also I want to share how we're involving students in the process as well. And some updates when it comes to wayfinding that I just think is a fun way to bring a whimsical feeling to the building when you enter. So we'll talk about that. And then I'll shift into the why behind shifting to trimesters. Our 6-8 scheduling committee started last year in January, and they then rolled over to it becoming the building leadership team, also working on the nuances behind how the schedule will work. So wanting to kind of talk through that and their why behind shifting to trimesters. And then also that bridge between not just shifting the middle school, but also shifting us K-8 to that model. And then based on that, moving into all of the different elective courses that we would like to propose, especially due to the desire for us to offer an array of opportunities for students. So those are the topics that we'll go through. So the overarching knowns and priorities that we have is, as you know, the middle school in the past has always been in a house concept. Dyer and Karcher have been that way, meaning that the students travel as a cohort of students. So we have approximately 200 students in a grade level. So there's 2 houses per grade level, so 100 students will have the same core academic teachers. So their ELA, math, science, and social studies teachers are the same, while the other 100 students have the other 4 academic teachers. That is how we've been functioning as a school district. And the 6-8 team really wanted to continue that tradition of functioning in a middle school house concept model. Really, the other way that middle schools sometimes go is to become more of a junior high model, which would not involve the use of houses. The house names, to some staff's sadness of losing their current name of their house, the plan is to allow the new students that are the first ones in the building to have some say and choice and voice into what the name of their houses are going to be. So that first group of kids next year, come September, they will work through the process of naming their houses. For example, right now, 8th grade houses are Silver and Hive. In 7th grade is Diamond and Onyx, but then at Dyer, it's Rainforest, Discovery, and Planet. So it might have made sense back in the day, but as we roll forward, all of those don't really have a natural cohesion together. So that's why we think it's important for us to shift away from that and have the students moving into the new building kind of come up with some new house names there. The other piece that staff really wanted to hold on to, which we all echo is an important piece, is the character education side of things. So we have always had an advisory period where we focus on 8 different character traits. And we do that across the whole school district. So that will continue forward into the middle school. Advisory groups are also a little bit smaller, and the students will start there every morning so that they have that consistent person every day at the start of their day, no matter how their schedule might adjust. The third thing that is a known is that we will continue to utilize iTime. I personally am a firm believer that iTime is a huge component of why we are growing so much from fall to spring, is because we are really focusing that time around math and reading so that we can accelerate all of our students based on our iReady data. So students are placed into groups based on their math or reading bands that they need assistance on. So that will continue forward as well. And then we also are going to have longer academic periods. We have that at Karcher also, and Dyer has even longer periods right now. So we have 54-minute academic periods. This will shift us to having almost 60-minute academic periods. And then, and again, that's in ELA, math, science, and social studies. So those are the core areas. And then the committee really went back and forth on this for a while of shifting between, do we have 3 elective periods that are shorter or 2 elective periods that are longer? And the committee really believed in the importance of more experiences and opportunities for students. So they landed on going with 3 elective periods instead of 2. So yes, they are a little bit shorter, but the staff really had consensus around that because they just felt like it was important for kids to have more and more opportunities. I'll expand on the 3 different ways there because our elective periods can be a year long, an AB, or a trimester. So I'll circle back to that. So when talking about the students and their houses and the names that they want to come up with in the fall, thought it would be just also nice as an update here when it comes to wayfinding for the building. So I myself did not know what wayfinding meant. So PRA shared that wayfinding is really providing that experience when you walk into the building. So these are the images, graphics, things like that that you would see when you're inside the building. This graphic right here is the one that PRA came up with. This is in the 3D printing room. So this is right off the cafeteria. So this image here would be on the back wall. Still some conversation on like what it totally looks like, but this image is what really inspired our staff to take the direction that they want to take with wayfinding. So as you can see, it started out, it's a machine. So we talked about how school is it's a learning machine, right? You walk in the building and everything that you're doing in there is creating, innovating, problem solving, collaborating, all of those kind of things. So that's how PRA came up with this diagram. And we noticed that they started with paper and pencil, meaning back in the day, education learning was on paper, pencil. And then as you work through the machine, you come to the now timeframe where we're using laser engravers, 3D printers, things like that. That then triggered our staff to come up with the idea of the 4 wings relating to the 4 different timeframes that there has been learning or additions, I should say, on the Karcher site. So how do we honor the Karcher site at the same time? As we all know that old Karcher is going to be removed, and how do we still honor everyone that has come through those time periods? And so this is the idea that they came up with. So I think it's actually a really cool concept. The 8th grade wing is going to be it's really going to be a decade. So there's some adjustments. It won't look exactly like this, but it is going to be something similar. So the 8th grade wing is going to be the 1920s wing. We're going with decades. So in the 20s is when the very first building was built on the Karcher site. So that was Burlington High School, built in 1924. So what we're going to have the students do, the current 7th graders are doing this, is that they are going to research the 1920s, that decade, and look up what inventions did we come up with in the 20s, who was really influential, what was going on in Burlington at that time, all of those kind of things in relation to the 20s. And then the wing will therefore take on the 1920s kind of time frame. We probably won't call it the 1920s wing. Someone had mentioned, what if it's the Roaring 20s? So it's probably going to be something that the students come up with that just kind of speaks to everybody as to what that wing will end up being called. And then the 7th grade wing will be the 50s, 60s decade, because there were additions between 1954 and 1968. So kind of that time frame is for the 7th grade wing. So again, who was influential then? What did we invent? What was going on in Burlington? And again, honoring those additions to the Karcher site. And then the 6th grade wing will be the 1980s, because there was additions again at Karcher School in 86. And they will do the exact same thing, researching who was influential, what did we invent, that kind of thing. And then we end up in the new middle school here, right? Which we kind of went back and forth if it should be the 2020s decade and time frame here in the STEAM area, because STEAM is really where you really are doing a lot of innovation and creativity. And 20 years from now, is what's on the wall going to be innovative? But the lens that staff and students took, which I think is, again, really cool, is to forward think on this. So not just go with, because we're really only 1 year into the decade. So research about what did they predict is going to happen? What do students think is the world will look like moving forward in the next decade? What, are we all electric cars in the next 10 years? Like what's going to happen, right, in the next few years? So that's how the wings will get laid out. You can see we have been pulling images from our current or past yearbooks and trying to infuse some pictures of actual photos from these times, but then also infuse those other pieces that the students come up with. Then in the comments, this is a huge graphic that will be on this wall right here in the new school. So this wall will kind of explain the 4 different time frames, those decades, and our why, so that it kind of ties the entire building together. these 3 R words come from our district essential skill committee and our what we call work and learning habits. So being respectful, being ready, and being responsible, that's a K-12 decision that we all believe in is how we should function as students in the building. So this is just another example of what the graphics will kind of look like in the building, and something that our students and staff are currently working on. Any questions when it relates to any of that?
No, I think this is awesome. This is great.
I like the idea of the wings and the way that they're going to be arranged. I like that. I think everybody in the city is going to like that because they can all relate to it.
Right, we were trying to think of how we can still honor the site, right? And still, I've gotten some phone calls from people like, oh, that was my locker, or oh, this was, you know, I'm sad that we're losing the building. So it is nice way for us to kind of pull that into the new building.
Very impressive.
I'll let the team know that. So the only other little tidbit that I wanted to add in here was when Peter, when you had mentioned that you got a little flyer from Lake Geneva about a program, that charter school that they're starting. Just wanted to share that at semester here at Karcher, specifically in 7th and 8th grade, only because we want to pilot it something small, is that we started a program called Burlington Connected. So this is our own virtual school where we use our own teachers instead of JEDI. So we are still partnering with JEDI, and they're still a great partner for us for some of our students. We just want to provide another option for other students where JEDI wasn't working as well for them. So we have staff members that have taken on this piece and really stepped in, which has been awesome to see. So what it is they have a class period where we moved students that are in person out of their section. So this social studies section, for example, with Miss Botsford, she doesn't have any in-person students at that time, but she has a virtual section at that time. So everywhere you see a bolded name, that's where a teacher has a virtual section. So the students then have some classes on Mondays, Thursdays, and then other classes on Tuesdays, Fridays. Now we're doing that right now because we're in a hybrid model right now. And also just kind of wanting to see how it works. What is the desire, and how well are the students doing? Do they like it? You know, is there other technology that we need in order for our students or teachers to be able to do something like this and moving forward? And so far we've gotten really, really good feedback from the students and the staff with the program. We started it on January 25th at the end of JEDI's semester. So they ended on January 18th. So then we wanted to then let the students in JEDI finish out their semester and then start up with us on the 25th. So again, just trying to start small and potentially utilize this as another option, silver lining of avenue we could move forward with in years to come. Any questions about that?
That's great stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Jill, I just want to make sure I understand this. Is it similar to what we're doing now with the A and the B days?
Yep. So if I'm a virtual student, so these are students that are not coming to school in person at all. But when the teacher has off is when in the time frame that we move students out of their section. So on Mondays and Thursdays, just like 8A students in person would be, they have social studies, science, and Spanish. That's our virtual kiddos. Then those same students have PE, ELA, math, and art on Tuesdays, Fridays. And then Wednesday's a virtual day for them to continue their work. And then we also gave a schedule for them as to when they could work on their other virtual work for any of their classes. The parent feedback on this has been awesome. They like that there's a set schedule and they know what their students are supposed to be doing every day. And they also appreciate that the students are engaged in Google Meets. So this time frame right here from 11:24 to 12:18, all the students that have social studies need to log into the Google Meet with Ms. Botsford. And so all the timeframes that are in bold are a Google Meet that is required for the students to attend.
Yeah, Peter, so I was gonna, what Jill just said, I think is the really important caveat with this, is that this is synchronous. That, you know, at 11:24, I have to be logged in for my social studies class with Ms. Botsford. So you don't, you know, it's not an asynchronous type of experience. And part of this, you know, kudos to the middle school staff for working, you know, with Jill so willingly to say, how do we get, you know, kind of in front of this, potentially not knowing what the future might hold.
Mhm.
So these are all students then that would be virtual 5 days a week, but these are virtual meetings. And like, for example, you said Ms. Botsford at 11:24 on an A day, Monday, Thursday, they'll meet virtually with Ms. Botsford synchronously. It's no eight. Okay.
Yep.
Very cool.
Yeah, so the students in the program are students who were in JEDI. And the feedback we got from some of them was that they really had a desire to have some in-person feeling, right, with an actual teacher in a Google Meet. So we took that feedback and just thought, okay, we could have the program for JEDI that's really working for some of our students. And then for those that are really longing for that face-to-face contact with a teacher, you know, how do we provide that? And then how do we also provide the totally in-person education too? So we just started it, you know, we're week 3 maybe, but it's going well.
Okay, any other questions?
So their plans to potentially, if this all goes well, expand this, and you may have said this, I apologize, to expand this to the high school as well, potentially?
Yeah,
or a similar model, I guess.
Yeah, we have had some conversation in regard to the high school, and we do think there's some ways that we could go about that. There's some classes can be a little bit tricky that are singletons. How do you do something like that? Maybe that is where you have virtual and in-person students at the same time. Maybe that's where a class can't run. We kind of want to see how this goes, what the success is for the students that are in it for 7, 8. And then kind of go from there and make a decision as a district if this is something that we're going to continue doing.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So these students that are doing virtual with Burlington, that brings the funding back to Burlington versus sending it out to JEDI, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Excellent.
Anyone else? Okay, Jill, did you want to go on?
Yep, I had the questions, but are we good with the questions? Okay, so now on to talking about trimesters, okay? And building the why though behind it so that you really understand where this kind of came from. So this is just a nice visual or two examples of visuals of what the 6-8 schedule would look like moving forward. So the green boxes here, every little box here, the little white guys, all of those are 10-minute increments. Okay. And like I had shared, an academic class is a little bit longer than elective classes are. So every green box is an academic course. So this is 60 minutes. So say this is English, ELA, math, science, social studies. Okay, so there's your 4 core area classes. And then yellow is the lunch periods for all 3 grade levels. Our blue is the I-time period that I was talking about, where we use our iReady data in order to put students into groups based on math or reading needs. That's all students. It doesn't matter if you're below grade level, on grade level, or above grade level, we place you into the right bands in either subject, math or reading. And then all of the orange little boxes are 40-minute elective periods. So again, this went back to, they we could have had 2 60-minute classes, elective periods, but we wanted students to have more choice and more opportunities. So it went with 3 elective periods instead of 2. So this just is showing you how the schedule could lay out. A, B, and C over here just would relate to, this could be 6th grade, this could be 7th grade, could be 8th grade. It could be, this is 6th grade, this is 7th grade, it kind of doesn't matter. We can't determine this until we really know our FTEs, and if we have traveling teachers from other buildings, that then kind of would determine which grade level needs to have what starting or ending the day. So this is just another model showing you down here, like a different way that those could be set up based on needs, really more so driven by staff. So once you analyze into that further, and we landed on, okay, we want the team landed on, we want the 4 60-minute classes and we want 3 elective periods. Well, now it came down to, what do those elective periods look like, right? So if you were to just take this 1 elective period right here, it could be a year-long class, which means it will run every day all year. It could be an AB course, which would be 2 different classes that run every other day all year. Or it could be a trimester course, which runs every day for 12 weeks. Okay, so there's 3 different options there. And then our why for that also is, we're currently, right now and in the past, what we have had is a year-long course as an option, and we've had semester 1 and semester 2 courses. So these were our 3 options for students currently at 7th and 8th grade. And the options that we want to move forward with, which open it up a little bit more for kids, is here. So that we would still offer year-long classes, which would be 36 weeks long. We'd want to offer AB classes instead of semester. The why behind that is, when you do it every other day, you can retain the information all year long, right? So the biggest class that staff were concerned about here was Spanish. Spanish is usually a semester course at the middle school level, and I might take it from September till January, and then I don't have Spanish again until September. So this way, when we go AB, we are still really a semester course. It's still 18 weeks long, but it runs all year long so that we can carry over and have that transfer a little bit better from year to year. Then the third option is with the trimester classes here. So these would be 12 weeks long or 60 days. And if you had 3 trimesters added together, that equals 36 weeks. So all 3 of these equal a year. It's just different variations of how long a class is in order to provide students with more choice. What here kind of is a little bit of what I kind of already mentioned. Again, moves all year. And how we decided which ones are year, AB, and trimester is a year-long class is one that really builds upon itself, and it's very sequential in order to have optimal growth and learning. Examples of that really are the overarching music classes. So for a student to be really successful in band, having band every single day all year is something that we believe is important. So especially when as we start band and orchestra and choir at the 6th grade level, part of that why there too, to not have it starting in 5th grade is because we really want a positive experience there. So and what we mean by that is you would be so much more successful, right, if I got to go to band every day versus maybe once a week. So the increase in the amount of time students are going to get when starting it in 6th grade is so much more beneficial for them. And then the AB classes, just like I was saying for Spanish, the benefit here too is that it's a class that's going to be sequential and builds off each other, but will be able to sustain all year long. And then trimester classes are classes that are more exploratory, where it will provide more breadth instead of depth. So little mini kind of classes in order for students to bop in and out of sections in case they're not quite sure what they're into yet. They have that ability to not have to stay in a course for too long, but also be able to experience numerous classes at the same time. I got this little guy down here of vegetables as just a little analogy, right? So a year-long class is kind of like, okay, I'm gonna commit to being a vegetarian, right? Like I've decided that I just want to be a vegetarian, right? I'm a band student. I want to do it. I'm committing to that all year. An AB class is kind of like, I'm going to commit to meatless Mondays, Wednesdays, right? So I want to commit to something, but I don't want to necessarily do it every day, but I do want to kind of hold to that no matter what. And then a trimester is kind of like an a la carte, right? I just want to be able to go up to the salad bar and kind of choose my own pieces because I'm kind of not sure what I want to put on my salad, right? Another really good example of showing why we would like to move to trimesters really did stem a lot from 6th grade. So when you look at 6th grade right now, if we were to stay with a year and semester classes, 6th grade has a lot of requirements per DPI. They have to take an art class when they're in 6th grade. They're required to take music and they're required to take PE. We as a school district also believe they should take a STEM or a Spanish class their 6th grade year. So to us, this would be something we believe they should do. So if you look at this, all the gray are classes that would be required. So they would have one opportunity to select something different, right? Here, if they choose a music class that runs all year, then they don't have any classes that they can choose themselves. So it really, really locks them in. If we were to switch to AB, opposite PE, and also have trimesters, it really opens things up for students. You'd have a minimum right here. This student would have a minimum of at least 2 classes that they could choose, and this all the way up to a maximum of 4 classes that a student could choose. So it really opens up a choice for students while still ensuring they get the required classes. Same requirements over here as there are over here. So it just really opens up a schedule for students. Any questions about this slide or anything so far?
I think it's outstanding.
Okay, good. The visuals, I was like, I got to get some visuals in there, right?
No, it's very good.
So what's really awesome is once you jump into 7th and 8th grade, there's the only requirement we have is with PE. So students have to have PE once a week, but as a committee felt like PE should be every other day. So that's the same for 6th grade. It will run PEs every other day. So that's why we can have an AB class opposite PE running all year. This year, right now, and in former years, PE was always paired with a study hall, and then these are semester classes here. So the minimum opportunities, if we stayed with semester and year-long classes, would be 2, because I could choose 2 year-long classes, with a maximum of opportunities if I chose 4 semester classes here. And if we went to trimesters with that AB schedule in there, the minimum opportunities is 3, which is here. And then the maximum is 7, which is here. So see the difference on our why of wanting to switch from semesters to trimesters. It really opens up a schedule for students and really allows for a lot more choice and voice. Another piece that kind of locks them up sometimes is our students who need intervention tend to lose an elective period all year. So then they really only have 1 elective. So if that were to happen next year, what's really nice is our trimesters align with interventions. Usually an intervention runs 6 and 12 weeks long. So a trimester is 12 weeks. So a student could be in a intervention for 1 trimester And then we see enough growth that they can jump out of intervention and into these trimesters. We could also offer intervention opposite PE. So then a student would have intervention every other day, and they would still have all of these options here. So it really is ensuring that all students have equal access and opportunities to all of the different choices that we have. And then the other positives for switching to trimester K-8 and not just 6-8 is that down here, you think of it in quarters. So the elementary level is in quarters, and so is Karcher. So everything is grading periods of 9 weeks. So the natural thing that is really awesome that a trimester does is we utilize fall, winter, and spring iReady data, which you are all aware of, that we test at those 3 timeframes. What would be really nice is that the diagnostic data would align to our 3 trimesters so that our grading periods and our diagnostic periods would align. The second thing that would be nice for elementary staff is that increasing it it increases the number of instructional days in a grading period. So our kindergarten teachers, for example, have shared that it is difficult to really give a progress report after 4.5 weeks of school because 9 weeks is already a reporting period. So this allows elementary staff to have a few more weeks with students before they really have to report out on their essential skill work. And like I had shared, it's consistent with our 6-week cycles of intervention and acceleration. And then what's also kind of cool on the teacher side is we have an educator effectiveness cycle where teachers have to submit and utilize student learning objectives, SLOs, and they also have to have professional practice goals, PPGs. Those also fall in a fall, mid, or beginning, mid, and end of the year format. So those 2 would fall in the correct data points that we would want staff to be using. Sometimes they say, oh, my data isn't really lining up with my SLO right now. Well, trimesters would really assist with that as well. So then we did figure out what the dates would be if we shifted to a trimester. And here's the dates down here as to when the trimesters would fall. Now the high school would still be on a semester and year schedule. It is not something that we're talking about right now with 9-12. This would just be K-8. Yep, questions?
I noticed when you planned for this, you said you met with the middle school teachers and so forth. Were there anybody from the elementary schools on the committee just to know what was going on?
No, not on the committee with like this up here. So everything up here was related for the 6-8 group. It was more so asking questions of we have a district essential skill committee that is K-12, and then we also have one that is K-5. So I did talk with some of them about this. And then I also talked with all of the elementary principals as well, pros, cons to switching between quarters and trimesters. And that's where all of these points came from.
And what schools around here are using trimester?
Elkhorn right next to us is using trimesters. Wauwatosa I know is using them. I think Kettle Moraine does. Quite a few school districts really have shifted to trimesters.
I like it just because it seems like it gives more opportunities for students and staff to be better prepared and to move on to each next grade level and then to catapult into the high school eventually. And this also, I think, kind of feels and sets some things up for post-secondary options as well a few years down the road. So I think this is awesome. Great work. Appreciate it.
I just have a question too. I think we'd have to have more people guiding these kids on what electives to take then. Are you planning on that and having more people available to talk about those?
Yeah, so there's a really cool document that I'll show at the end that is just mind blowing how well it was put together by staff. So actually Nicole Delassis, she's the secretary at the high school, but she's working on getting her counselor hours. So she's working on her middle school practicum time, and she spent a lot of time putting together a really nice, easy way for students to select classes and manipulate a document. So I'll show you that towards the end. Mhm.
And I had one special area teacher call me and say, I don't even know how I'm going to get everything in, blah, 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 blah. Are the special, like the music teachers and all that, are they okay with this? This could be
Yeah,
just,
so I think sometimes they get nervous when we have anything dealing with change, right? So the addition of simply a grade level for 7th and 8th grade, shifting to also 6, 7, 8, just adds that natural little bit of anxiety because that's another grade level to take care of. It also is a little bit of the unknown of which classes I'm going to be teaching, right, as the teacher versus maybe what a different teacher is going to be teaching. Once everything plays out and we see where the student course selections go, it'll really align, because if we have three classes of the percussion theatrics, let's say, well, we would line those up so that it's the same teacher teaching those, right? So those kind of things are things that we always do. Right now, there's just some trepidation around it because it's a little bit of the unknown for the staff. But once we start putting the schedule together, it'll feel very familiar to them.
okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else?
Roseanne, I just would add too, because I don't think Jill would say this, but you know, the power of what you're seeing here is really a collaborative process. And you know, Jill referenced kind of quickly that kind of a year in the making. I think to your earlier question, Roseanne, it's not been easy. There have been meetings that people left, you know, needing to air their grievances sort of, and then come back at the process again. And so what you're seeing tonight as a board is a solid year's worth of collaboration amongst lots and lots of people trying to find common ground to really to serve kids. And so it's impressive to see the net result of this. And in some ways you're also seeing Jill's analytical brain at work here in terms of how to best present this in a way that makes sense. But this has been, in my comments earlier when I talked about patience, this has been one of those processes that has really, I think, been a test of many, many people's patience, because it is new and it is different. We can't just lop on a new grade to the middle school and keep everything as is. And so the number of iterations that this has gone through is really quite impressive. And I think part of the reason we wanted to stop here before Jill goes on, and we listed this as an action item, is because moving to a trimester schedule is a significant change that's, you know, being proposed from this committee. And so we wanted to kind of pause, make sure that the board was able to ask questions, take a vote, then move on to essentially the next piece of this, which is, okay, if kids have more choices, what do those courses then look like? And so that's kind of the natural break if there are other questions, whether those are directed at Jill or Connie or myself, because we hopefully could all answer anything the board may be curious about.
And I know Diane had a question.
More of a comment. I think this is very exciting. I know how middle school kids think, and to give them all these opportunities to explore and find out what their interests are, they'll be so well prepared for high school when they get even more choices and start to look at career paths. I have taught middle school trimester. Having those 3 additional weeks does so much for developing a rapport with your students. So kudos to the committee, and I hope this moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mhm.
Anybody else? Okay, so Steve, we're supposed to vote on this now and then move on?
Yeah, if you would entertain a motion, I think it would just be good, reinforcement to the committee and their work that it's officially board approved.
Okay, anyone wish to make that motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve that.
Second, Taylor.
It's been moved and seconded that we go ahead with the elementary and middle school trimester proposal. Any more discussion? Okay, voting, Toby?
Roseanne,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jill.
Yeah. All right. So now let's look at all these wonderful classes that we're going to have due to a trimester schedule. So the classes that are coming up here, it does seem like a lot. I know there was a lot within the board minutes for you guys to review. It really does stem from breaking classes up into thirds instead of into either a year or in half, right? It also stems from, due to the referendum, we are utilizing some of our FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment budget for some equipment related to STEM. We have needed STEM equipment for a while, so we are taking the opportunity now to be able to kind of build that up a little bit. So you'll notice that when we get to some of the classes relating to STEM. So a class that is being presented as a course proposal for art. Now everything too, I'll send this link to Steve and Toby to share with you later, but everywhere where you see an underline, that is you can get directly to the course proposal sheet, which is also in the board minutes. But in case you want to be able to get there from the presentation, you can. I was going to just synthesize all of the course requests or course proposals for you. So this class, I think, is extremely interesting and awesome avenue for our art department to want to go. So their thought process here is to have a trimester course for all 3 grade levels. And in this course, the teachers would teach an array of different art techniques. And then the goal is really to help students see all the different career paths and opportunities that are out there with an art background. So often when students take an art class, they think, oh, it's just painting or ceramics or drawing, right? So the art teachers wanted to really be able to have the students start to make something. So the goal is every student needs to come up with, it's almost like Etsy, if you all know what Etsy is. So it'd be a student's really into jewelry making. So they can come up with an example of a jewelry piece that they would want to make. And then they would have to figure out how much it would cost and then design it. And then also put out a plan, like help me here.
Marketing plan, business plan.
Yeah, there you go, business plan for it. And then also, design a little card, if you will, that would go with it so that they then have to mass produce the item that they would want to sell. So if it's a piece of jewelry, I make my prototype and then I'm going to make X amount of examples of that. And then we would have those items for sale at the reception area in the middle school. They could be for sale at an event or something like that. And all of the profits then of that money would just go back to the art department for the Makers Market student projects. So really trying to push on the ability for students to not just see art as art class, but to really see what you can do career-wise when it comes to the art side. So that's what this course would be proposed at. A student could take it all 3 years because you could come into the class and do different projects every time. Any questions about that one?
No.
The next course is in the music department. So this is instrumental boot camp. This is only for 7th and 8th grade, and it would run by trimester, but it would run all 3 trimesters if we have students that are interested in it. So this class is for students who may have decided not to do an instrumental course, orchestra or band when they're in 6th grade, but now decide as a 7th grader they do want to try an instrument. So this class would allow them to take a trimester of in band, for example, and then the teachers would assess if the student is at the level where they can now jump into the 7th grade band, or if they would need another trimester before they could do that. This is also a class that could be offered to a student who maybe is playing the saxophone in the large band ensemble, but also wants to learn how to play the flute. So they could be playing the saxophone with the band and then having a trimester where they're also learning the flute. The next course, good?
No, I said that sounds good to me.
Yeah, right. So this next one is interesting as it kind of goes off of the side of music production and recording. So this class is something that would be offered as a trimester for 7th and 8th graders. And the students would really be focused on really learning how to create their own music and engaging in that on their computers. So this would be a really, really interesting class for those that might have interest in that music production, that electronic side of things, or recording side of things. So it would be a trimester for students interested in that side of music. The next one is musical theater and songwriting. So this one is for any of our students who have a huge interest in Broadway musicals, and really catering it more so to the behind the scenes of how Broadway musicals work and how they decided the music that was written, and be able to have an overview of how you put musicals together and potentially be able to even start working towards creating one of their own or songs that would relate to a musical kind of a course. The next one is percussion ensemble. So this class would run every day all year long. So what this class is really for is, it is really the students who are interested in being in band, but want to play a percussion instrument in band. Frequently, especially when they first start out in the middle school level, there is a lot of time and attention spent on all of the brass instruments for the band teacher. So this would allow the percussionist to also really excel and grow as a percussionist. They would still participate in all of the concerts with their peers that are playing all of the brass instruments. They would just be able to work on percussion on their own and always have that focus during that class period. The band teachers have shared that percussion is an area that they usually don't get to expand on enough. Like when you look at this picture, there's so many different instruments that are really part of the percussion, but because of the amount of other instruments the teacher also needs to focus on, they tend to not be able to really introduce the percussionist to as many of these as they would like. So this would allow them to do that. So a percussionist would be in this class, focus on the songs that are part of the band, but they would also perform some pieces that would be on their own, just as percussionists at a concert. This next one is my favorite course that was proposed. If any of you have been to a Karcher band concert, they have done a theatrics piece all the time at their the concert, and it seems to be the piece that is really well received by the audience. So it is where the students, it's kind of like Stomp if you've ever seen that. Students use an array of different materials to play music with. So like a bucket, they were doing an ode to the construction site one year, and they used water bottles, lunch bags, even I think they were even using the plastic bags from their lunch bags, the helmets from the construction site. So it's a class like that where they are putting together an amazing piece of music, but using all things that are non-instrument related. And this would run by trimester, where a student could take all 3 trimesters if they want. Because at the end of every trimester as well, this is what's also beneficial to a trimester music-wise, is we have concerts in the fall, winter, and spring. And those concerts would also be able to fall at the end of a trimester. So that also is kind of nice with that, but the students would perform at the end of a trimester. And then if maybe they're only in this class for 1 trimester, that's fine. And then they would move on to the next course. But I love that class. I think students are gonna really like it. Another music class being offered is Singers Workshop or Discover Your Voice. This stemmed a bit from the concert that usually is at the end of the school year, which is called the Pop and Rock Concert, usually 1 or 2 days before 8th grade recognition, where students are really performing either in solos or in small group settings. So this is for students who really, though they might really like being in a choir setting, they really wanna hone in on their own personal voice and improve their own voice and be able to focus on singing on their own. So this class is geared for students like that. They too would have concerts where they are asked to perform if they would be willing to. That was it for the music classes. Any questions on the music ones?
These courses were recommended by the music teachers themselves now, or did they come
Yeah.
up with the courses?
The music teachers came up with all of them.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry, just real quick. So these courses will be unique to Burlington. These are not courses that are going to be offered at other districts, correct?
I mean, if
Similar courses, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, if another school district had teachers that were really pushing themselves and having some out of the box thinking, they might have courses like this. What is really nice is our essential skill work, which is revolves around the content standards, really falls in line with any course because you're really working on the skills of the subject area. So music essential skills flows into any music class. So that's what's really nice for this is they will be able to assess students no matter what kind of content they're utilizing. So Taylor, yes, to answer your question, I would say they're fairly unique to Burlington.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay,
Then-
any more questions?
Yeah, anything else with music? Okay, then we are going to move on to STEM. So this is where we are starting to get into being able to really expand based on working with a company called Lab Midwest. We went and talked with a few different STEM companies in order to see who would work the best for us when it comes to our curriculum, but also equipment needs for STEM. And Lab Midwest is based out of Mequon here in Wisconsin, and really does a nice job on focusing on the equipment side of things, and really does a fantastic job of also making sure that our staff feel trained on the equipment and also on the curricular side. So I'm going to close my door for a second because one of the custodians is going to start vacuuming really close, and I want to make sure you can still hear me. Just a second. Thank you. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so this class is for 6th grade. So this is, if you recall, we had said that students in 6th grade need to take either STEM or Spanish as a trimester. So this is a class that we would have students that are wanting to go take the STEM course. It would be this one. So this class involves students partaking in a bunch of different activities that are focused on a bunch of different STEM areas. So this is kind of in a trimester, they might have 6 to 7 capstone projects that they are going to learn a little bit about design thinking, and then they will be given a challenge. And then they'll learn a little bit about design thinking and given a challenge. So they engage in that throughout that entire trimester. And it is also trying to help students have an idea of what's to come in 7th and 8th grade. So there's little pieces of each of the 7th and 8th grade classes as those capstone projects within this class. So that's nice because it just allows them to kind of understand, ooh, I really liked robotics, or ooh, I liked mechatronics, or, you know, so they can really start to hone in on which classes they want to take as a 7th and 8th grader. This is also for 6th grade. So this is a trimester course that is an elective. It would be a choice. So this is something, if they want to dive into more STEM classes, they could go here. And this one is very theme-based around a lot of careers. And the other one was a little more exploratory of what you're gonna see in the years to come in 7th and 8th grade. This one focuses a bit more on the careers that are in STEM so that they really start to get an understanding of the pathways. And then this one is the last one for 6th grade that you could take in 6th grade. Again, you'll notice it says it's for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade because we really want to emphasize the importance of not having very many classes with a prerequisite. So you're only 12, 13 years old. And we don't want to pigeonhole them into one direction just yet. So this way, no matter what, you could still jump into robotics as an 8th grader if you wanted to. So intro to Lego robotics would be offered all 3 years, but if you take it in one grade level, then you would not be able to take it again. So this class literally is an intro to robotics. We already have these Lego robots in the school district right now. We just have not been utilizing them as a standalone course. Because it's been a trimester or a semester, right? We have 18 weeks. Using the Lego robots has been a section of the 18 weeks. So we'll actually be expanding this a little bit to make it run for 12 weeks of time. And the focus will be solely around the Lego robots. The next one is a makerspace. This kind of falls in line with that concept and idea that the art teacher had. Over time, the STEM and art teacher really want to be able to have that maker's market and maker space, those groups of students to kind of collaborate together and make something. This side probably is going to start out more so where you're not necessarily trying to sell something, but more so just, I want to make something, right? So students are going to be given 24 different ideas so they can utilize and try to take off from one of those ideas, or if they have a different one, they can go in that direction. But it still is around the importance of how do we be creative, innovative, design thinking, but lets them have a little bit more say in the direction that they go in this class. This one is a 3D STEM or 3D printing and rapid fabrication. So this one is really starting to get into more specifics when it comes to using our 3D printers that we have. So we should have somewhere around 10 to 12 3D printers at the middle school. So students will be able to engage in projects and coming up with different needs when it comes to 3D printing. It was pretty cool. A couple of years ago, some students made a 3D printer piece where they really wanted their cell phone to be able to sit on something so that they didn't have to hold it. So then students had to design it, get it in the program, and then, you know, 3D print it. So at the middle school level, that's pretty awesome for them to start to try to do projects like that. Now, this one is going off of what we call an engineering construction kit that we will be purchasing through Midwest. This engineering construction kit has 11 to 12 different areas of focus that you can utilize the kit for. So it's really, really nice because it's a lot of bang for your buck. So literally 11 different courses can stem off of this single kit. So this class, because it's a 12-week rotation or 12-week time frame, it's really based off of a 4-week time frame per area. So that's why this class is going to involve mobile robotics for 4 weeks, agriculture technology for 4 weeks, and then energy and building for 4 weeks. So it really focuses around different concepts, but always still focused around that technology side at the same time. The next one, again, anytime you see design and technology, it's using those engineering kits. So this class focuses more on biomedical construction and transportation. So really what's cool about the biomedical piece, for example, is that's where students are starting to understand and how do we start to help make a prosthetic arm, right? Or finger, or, you know, when people are needing some sort of support, what does that look like, and how do we develop something? So that's what this course is about. The last one in regard to the design technology construction kit relates to engineering, design, mechatronics, and industrial robotics. So this one, for example, right here, let me blow it up a little bit. This little guy right there, students are given the task of, this is a railroad crossing. So they have to put all of this together. They have to figure out the lights. They have to time it correctly so that if a train is coming in 15 seconds, you have X amount of time to get the lever to come down and all that, and the lights should be working and all that kind of stuff going together. So that's the kind of lessons that the students are working through in each of these classes. Like, I wish I was back in 7th grade.
Me too.
This class is Lego robotics. So this is based off of that intro to Lego robotics. So they could take that intro class in 6th, 7th, or 8th grade year, but if they take the intro class, they can then take this Lego robotics class. So it's simply expanding on what they have learned in that class. So yes, it is a prerequisite, but we still are providing that opportunity for introduction robotics at the same time. Then the last, so that's the last of the STEM classes. Was there any questions with STEM?
Yeah, so how many of these classes, and kind of along similar lines of the last question, or last group that I asked, how many of these classes will, I guess, set us apart from our neighbors that could potentially draw more families or students into, you know, Burlington area school district? I mean, because a lot of this stuff is just, I mean, fantastic. And I'm thinking, I guess that kind of piggybacks into the next question of, with so many of these fantastic STEM program courses being offered, how does that translate into 9 through 12 for those, you know, to I guess to continue on? Because I would hate to have a student be able to take advantage of some of these fantastic courses, but then that's their only experience is 6th through 8th, and then we don't really have a continuation besides, let's say, like a youth options or, you know, college career ready course, whatever. I mean, I'd like to try to keep something in-house as much as we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are good questions, Taylor. So to speak to that piece, this will push on, you know, some further thinking when it comes to the high school. Now, we don't want to disregard the manufacturing side in the ACE Academy because there's a lot of important need there too. It's just how do we expand upon, you know, maybe more of that engineering piece as well at the high school. So it's not replacing anything. It's a potential of how do we potentially add some more course offerings, right, in this area.
Sure.
When you're talking about schools around the area, everyone is kind of moving in the direction of courses of this nature. The tricky thing is STEM equipment is very expensive. And there's some things that we would love to get and hope to get down the line that would probably really start to set us apart. Lego robotics is something that's fairly common. Now, is it the exact robot across school districts? No. I do know that Waterford was working with Lab Midwest, but they have a full gamut of different avenues that you can take. So I don't know that we went the same direction as Waterford. And to be frankly honest, I did talk to the consultant and told him that we wanted to have some courses that would set us apart from Waterford. So he kind of steered us in a little bit of a different direction. So, you know, over time, hopefully it's something we can continue to grow and continue to add more and more equipment that we need to continue to push this along. But I do think it will provide us with a unique experience for students that choose our district.
Awesome. Yeah, I think, you know, in terms of an investment, I'm more than happy and willing to make any investment that in STEM from grades 6 through 8, and then obviously through 9 through 12, because it's obviously a very important program. So, I mean, in terms of cost, I don't really care because I think the investment's worth it. So that's just me.
Taylor, I would also just add on to what Jill said. I think to both your questions in the music area and the STEM area, is it unique? There's always a little bit of unique twist from district to district. Certainly this puts us in a position of perhaps some elite and rare company. Yep. Who might have some things that are similar, and yet this puts us, you know, kind of right at the table. And I can tell you that, you know, when Jill and I and some of the folks in the middle school got to go to Lab Midwest, I think one of the things really that put them over the top in terms of wanting to partner was that they're more than willing to personalize where other companies sell kind of kits, if you will. And we really liked the notion of personalization and their sort of future attitude for expansion. And so we really started to believe that if we build it, they will come, and that we can start at the middle school and create an environment that ultimately will build into the high school, as you've suggested. So they're great questions. I don't know that we have super kind of hardline answers, but certainly it's very encouraging to know that once this is in place, there's that opportunity for expansion.
So sorry, just real quick to kind of go off of what you just said. So we're targeting 6 through 8 with the potential to expand into 9 through 12. And you mentioned that this organization that we're partnering with has the potential to kind of craft curriculum to what we're specifically looking for. Is there an option for like an elementary model potentially, if we ever wanted to potentially go down that route? I'm sure there is, but I'm just curious, just for the sake of asking the question.
Yeah, I do think so, Taylor. I know that I was not part of that specific question because we were sort of focusing on once you start them in middle school, is there a place for them to go? But I don't know if Jill has more detail on that, but I do believe that they do have a elementary component if desired.
Yeah, we honestly didn't strike up much conversation with them in that regard, in that direction. We were fairly focused on the middle school, and then they actually have their biggest basis of work is at the high school level. So then we just kind of asked questions about that. We did also ask them for, you know, different price ranges of if we had X amount of money, what are the different options we have, if we have this, more so also wanting to work off of if we're in the middle, like what's next, right? Like what would you put on the table for what we should be getting next that aligns to where we're trying to go. So they're, like Steve said, more than willing to help us with that kind of a process.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of training and support can they offer?
So that is what's really nice about Lab Midwest is they have a fairly extensive training program and curriculum that backs up all of their equipment. So anytime that we have questions about our equipment, our staff can call them, talk to them, do a Zoom with them really quick. They'll come down and support our work. So that was also a huge component that our teachers were concerned about. As the middle school level, it is tricky to find staff that have a tech ed certification, right? So most of our STEM teachers are going to want and need training on some of the new equipment, but the staff that we have in place are extremely excited about it and really, really eager to get some of the equipment in their hands. We did reach out to Midwest and they're going to get us a few of the items that we want early here so that the staff can start working with them now and just start feeling comfortable with it beforehand. We also already purchased the curricular side of things so that the staff can start to look at what that looks like as well.
Nice.
Mhm. Then the last class on the list is in the world language department, and that is Spanish. So Spanish currently is not something that is in the 6th grade level, and we felt it would be important to incorporate it in 6th grade. So this is one of those classes that either students need to take that intro to STEM or Spanish 6. It will run for a trimester, and it will give them that dabble of Spanish while they're starting out in 6th grade. Now, students can take the Spanish class and the intro to STEM class. It's not saying either or. It's, well, you have to take either or, but you can do an and take both of them. So the last thing on the list was also continued courses, right? So we just went over all of the new classes. We are also still running our classes we've had in the past. So these are the classes that they were currently called, and this is what they're being called moving forward. So Art Travels is the class that was a 7th and 8th grade semester course. So it is going to be a trimester course. And then what they also want to do is have a class that's called Expanded Art Travels. So this is for students who are really into art class and want 2 of their elective periods during the same trimester to be in art. So that I have Art Travels, for example, 1st hour, and then I would have Expanded Art Travels 2nd hour. So I'd be in art class for 80 minutes instead of art class for 40 minutes. So this is an option for students who are really, really into art and really want to expand on their skills in that area. So anytime you see Expanded, it's just offering that as an option. And then we still have our world music and drumming class, our instrument to rock, pop, and country. And then of course our band, orchestra, and mixed choir. The teachers do want to try to run a boys and girls choir separately. So those are 2 classes that could run opposite PE. There is concern on the side of getting more and more boys to want to sign up for choir and wondering if that would be, would they have more interest in it if they were singing separately from the girls? So wanting to just see how that goes. And then computer science principles has run in the past. They want to try running it again. And then we do have Spanish 7, Spanish 8. These would be every other day all year, versus Spanish 8 year would be a course that could get them into sophomore level Spanish if recommended by the teacher. So that's a lot going on, right? So the way that students are going to be able to select this, I promise I'm almost done, is to go through a slideshow like this. Basically, they're getting to this slide that looks a little bit like a hot mess, but this is a class, Phi-Ed, this is for 7th grade, that they have to take. Then what they're told to do is that they just have to move their elective classes to cover up all the gray on the right? So super simple, cover up the gray. So they just are gonna come over here and like, oh, I wanted that music theater class. So I'm gonna drag it. Oop, I have the wrong one. Sorry. I'm gonna grab this musical theater class and I'm gonna drag it over here. And then oh, I'm gonna grab the Spanish 7, right? So I want that. And like, oh, wait a minute, that's not gonna fit there because there's a little extra sliver, right? Oh yeah, it's an AB class, it'll fit up here. Okay. So then they'll notice that they, need to just cover up all the gray. So the only other thing that's gonna fit here is 2 more elective classes. So they would just drag and drop them up here. And if they wanted a year-long class, then they would drop it into this spot here. But they can move these around and switch and pick a different one if they wanted, and drop it into the box. So this is a way that they could do this at home with their families, or just play around with it in order to figure out the best way to put this together for themselves. Then they'll take what they put here and get it on a sheet, and then we'll put it in Skyward and see where the classes fall. This might look like a lot of classes, and I would agree with that. We don't know the predictability yet of which classes are more of higher interest from students. And we will get that predictability in the next couple of years. And perhaps a few classes don't run as frequently, but we'll kind of see how it goes. And I think that's a wrap, everybody. Yep.
I'm gonna say, so as Jill pauses, I mean, first, thank you to she and the middle school staff, the 6th through 8th grade staff, actually, that I spent, tremendous amount of time on this, but we felt like it was most important to really present this to you as a package in some ways, because they all, as you can see, work together in support of how students will select courses, how they will fill their trimester schedules. And so, if when you get to a point and you feel the discussion's over and are ready to, make a motion on kind of this slate of classes, certainly we're excited about it. We think it's going to be a wonderful sort of start to what will be the new Karcher Middle School. So thank you to Jill as she wraps up.
Thank you, Jill. And I will make the motion that we approve these new course proposals for grades 6 through 8.
Second, Taylor.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve these new course proposals for grade 6 through 8. Any discussion or more questions for Jill or anyone?
I just have a quick comment. I mean, really cool. I like the trimesters, and as a parent of an 8th grader next year, there's a bunch of those I know he'd be excited to take. So well done.
I was thinking of you when they talked about that. All the
I showed this to my husband, because he doesn't know anything about education. So like, do you understand what I'm showing you? And he's like, I want to take all these classes. So that's good, right? So that's what we want. We want students to be excited to be in Burlington and excited about what they have in front of them. And the more we can give choice and voice to students, the better.
Great.
Barry,
Okay.
I saw your hand, Barry, too.
Oh, I'm sorry, Barry.
So I'll start with the short regret, because I don't want to finish with that. I do regret we missed the opportunity to extend these opportunities to the 5th grade when we built the school. But that said, the amount of work that went into building this schedule out and creating these opportunities is really incredible. I was going to say the exact same thing Taylor said earlier. I do think this is going to push the high school. Yes, they do have courses that will complement what you're doing at the middle school, but I think this is going to push them even harder to create more opportunities up there. And it's going to be an incredibly exciting time to be a student in Burlington. So thank you for all the hard work. Really looking forward to seeing how this works out.
Yeah. I'll thank our staff for you, because it really was, I was more so the facilitator, they were the doers. So staff did a really nice job putting it together.
I'm sure they had good direction. Diane?
And I just want to say, twice now, Dan has taken small groups of us through the new school, and to be able to see the music wing and the STEM wing and think about these kinds of classes being taught there, it's just so exciting. So yeah, congratulations. I'm really looking forward to it, but are there costs involved with staffing that we need to know about? I saw with what we saw in board docs, it would say 1 to 2 staff members because you don't really know how many of the students are going to sign up for the different things. So are there additional staff implications? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Diane, that's a really good question. So back when the staff had decided that they wanted to do 3 elective periods in a 6-8 middle school instead of in 7th and 8th, it gave me a little heart palpitations for a hot second because I was thinking from the lens of we can't increase FTEs. So did work out the mathematically, and it will not impact our FTEs. Shouldn't. No.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Anybody else?
I'm jealous. I think this thing should be put on PBS. This is absolutely amazing. And I'm so excited for our industry, for the construction industry, for the engineering industry, for the musical industry. It's absolutely incredible.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. I'll let our staff know that.
Agree with Kevin. I think that this needs to be promoted. Once everything's up and running, this needs to be promoted like no tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Visual scheduling is very creative. I think kids are really going to latch onto that and understand that far easier than, wait, which ones can I take? What is this? I think this is really going to work out well for them.
Yeah, we started with it on a piece of paper, and then we're like, you know how many times you're gonna have to scribble it out on a paper? And like, no. So yeah, Nicole Delastis, I give her all the credit. She came up with that concept.
Amazing. Really cool. I mean, I think ACE was absolutely amazing for what's going on in our industry. This just takes it to a whole new level.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. Tell your amazing job and great job facilitating it.
Thanks.
And I'm sure Connie had a little bit of play in there too.
No, I'm not going to take much credit for this one. A little guide on the side, but Jill's the creative thinker there, so she can take the credit.
But you allowed it, and that's important.
Thanks,
You're a great leader.
Thanks.
Any other comments, or are we ready to vote? Okay, Toby, we're ready to vote.
Roseanne,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on, we're going to the BHS Club and Event Fee. And I think we talked about this last year as to the $35 each. And I think we're going to reimburse the students, or they can use that if they're going to the prom. Is that correct, Steve?
Yeah, this was a topic that we discussed in the fall when we had brought you an update on fees for essentially the year of COVID. And this was one that had some debate amongst the board and whether we should keep it, get rid of it. And basically the idea was, hey, why don't you come back in the spring? We'll see if our events have kind of taken on a new life or not. And so as we sit here in February, it doesn't look promising that things are going to change too much more from maybe where they are. We've been playing sports with very limited spectators. We've had some club activity, but it certainly isn't probably worth the club fee the way it's written. And so it would be the recommendation from Ruth and I and the administrative team that we refund that. And or one option would be that this could be applied to like a prom ticket at the high school that would reduce the cost of that as well. So we're just really bringing this to you out of a reminder and some transparency for the fact that, you know, we certainly don't want to assess a fee that seems to be displaced in a year like what we're having.
I agree. So we're looking for a motion to reimburse and offer it as a possible prom. They can use it for the prom.
Yep. I'll make a motion that we reimburse the BHS club fee and an event fee and allow that reimbursement to count towards the prom for this year.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. And any discussion on that?
If I can add just a clarifying matter, typically what we do is we've been handling it by just putting credits on people's account that they can apply like to future fees, but we would refund it if they would request for it. So we don't just automatically refund everybody, but we put the credit on their account towards future unless they request for it, a refund.
That's a good idea.
Just want you to understand that that's how we've been handling it.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? Toby?
Roseanne,
Yes.
I'm sorry. I think Barry had his hand up.
Oh, Barry, I didn't see your hand.
Basically, Ruth mostly nailed it. Is it easier for you guys to provide the credit versus a refund? I would think that would be far less hassle for you guys.
It's easier to do the credit than the refund, yes.
Right, and they can be applied to any student fee or any school fee. It doesn't have to be one particular thing.
Correct.
Just so that's clear in the motion that it's not specifically going to one event. It can go towards anything.
Right.
Yes.
We've done that before. We've done that before. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, then we'll vote.
Roseanne,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, next we're moving on to Neola recommended revisions and bylaws policies. So this is the second reading. So Steve, we don't need to go through all these or anything. It was just we've all read them and gone through.
Correct. This would be a follow-up to the update that you saw in January, and everything comes back to you as a second reading, and the second reading is essentially the adoption. So if
Okay.
there are no further questions, then we will go ahead and work with Neola to make those appropriate changes.
Okay, so we need a motion for that.
I move we go ahead with the amended changes to the Neola policies as noted in the first and second reading.
Second the motion.
Then move in second that we go with you, Neola's recommended revisions to bylaws and policies. Any discussion? More questions? Okay, Toby, all in favor? Toby?
Roseanne,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you.
So next we move on to the district roofing projects. And I know that we had a good discussion on that last meeting. Is there anything else we need to know about that before we vote, or?
I know that the discussion was at Buildings and Grounds, and so I don't know if Barry had any update from Buildings and Grounds just from his recollection, or certainly Dan's been here waiting patiently as well if we want to hear from Dan about those roofing projects for the benefit of the full board.
Go,
For a
Dan.
second there, I kind of thought Dan had fallen into a Weekend at Bernie's thing. I wasn't sure if he was with us or not. But no, it was the approval of the Buildings and Grounds Transportation Committee that we go ahead and move forward with these projects. So I would put that in the form of a motion.
Second, Taylor.
It's been moved and seconded that we go on with the district roofing projects. Any more discussion or questions?
Can I wasn't at the Building and Grounds Committee. Can you just give me like a 15-second overview of what's going on?
We're gonna
So,
put roofs on.
yeah.
Dan, you want to do that?
That was 2 seconds.
So it's finishing up the last of the roofing projects that we had as part of the referendum. So we did half of the BHS roof last year. So we're covering the other half of that roof this summer, a portion of Dyer roof, and then all of Winkler's roof. And to the tune at the high school was a budget amount of roughly $508,000. At Dyer was $122,275, and at Winkler was $124,100.
How'd the funds come in versus the referendum dollars that were allocated for them?
We were pretty much spot on at the high school, and then The cost for some parts of it have gone down. So Lions or Winkler was actually less than what, say, Lions was last year. So we had budgeted more than what we needed for that project at Winkler.
Any other questions or comments?
I believe we got one contractor for all 3 roofs. Is that correct, Dan?
Yeah,
they
we
were,
have patients. Yep.
Yep, they were very competitive on price, and I think they were the fastest time frame wise too.
Yep.
Okay, then we will vote.
Roseanne,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the comment on or talking about the Wainwright to renovate the 209 Wainwright building for the future home of the district office.
And this,
So-
this too, Roseanne, this was discussed at Buildings, Grounds and Transportation. So I'll defer this one to Barry as well. And I know Dan had some things prepared to share with the board as well.
So we covered this in our last meeting, actually, on they've fine-tuned the floor plans a little bit and came back with some numbers that were higher than what we originally anticipated. Sorry, I heard my own echo there. We, as the Buildings, Grounds, Transportation Committee, recommended this going forward with the projects and continuing looking at moving ahead with this. I think we're gonna have some discussion tonight as to what version we would go ahead with. One thing I would offer on this is that it's not a Taj Mahal. That comes up every time we go to build a building. Someone says, you're building Taj Mahals. This is not excessive. This is not exorbitant. This is something the district has been lacking for a very long time. And it's about time we allocate the proper resources towards it. So from there, Dan, do you want to fill us in on what we're looking at here? You're on mute, Dan.
Got to unmute.
Sorry. Yeah, I would like to go over, I created a slideshow that I'll present here just to kind of go over how we got to where we're at now and what's, we need to move forward. So if I'll share my screen here. So first off, back in September 30th, this past year, the Buildings and Grounds Committee met. We discussed the possible relocation of our district offices to our current building that's on Wainwright, the 209 building. I proposed a outside rendering and a floor plan at that meeting and budgets along with that floor plan. After that meeting, there was discussion and that we should take a step back, look at the rendering, since it was a rendering that was proposed approximately 13 years ago or 10 years ago, and truly look at it as what our current needs are and what would be future needs for the district. And then taking a look at fully developing what the outside of that building could look at. So at that meeting, this was the original floor plan that was proposed. So we've totally taken a different approach and re-looked at this as well. And this was the rendering that was given at that meeting. Since then, since October through January, after that meeting, we started setting up meetings with PRA and different district office staff to kind of develop a couple different options for what the floor plan could be. One where it would be truly a redesign and one would be with still having some existing walls in place. And as we move forward, all staff felt that the one that really kind of transformed it into what you guys saw is the option that we should be moving forward with. We We took into all different considerations for our current staffing needs, for the current needs for the district, and for what we felt would be for the future. We had new renderings drawn for the facade of the new building. This was to give the look of a campus and that kind of feel with the abandonment of Wainwright that is possibly going to happen. Then these plans were given back to Sheer Construction, where I've met multiple times with Ben Templin and Joe Allen in regards to pricing and looking at different ways that we could go about this. And then since then, the Buildings and Grounds Committee met on January 25th to discuss the new floor plan, renderings, and budgets. So this was the floor plan that was fine-tuned and probably has gone back and forth at least a half a dozen times to kind of look at every space needs for the district. It gives us the allocated offices that we would need for the district. It gives us privacy. It gives us areas to have a conference room and have the boardroom with another large conference room there as well. It gives us the storage needs, and it truly feels the needs of the district office. This was the new proposed facade. This would be from the Wainwright view. This was the proposed area. This would be from Perkins Street. This would be viewing from Market Street, and this would be where Project Win now is going to be located in this area of the building. And this was another view from the front from Wainwright. So the budgets that were proposed at the last meeting included some value engineering that myself and a couple staff and Sheer went over. The facade, the exterior was budgeted out at $366,000. The interior renovations were budgeted at roughly $720,000. Fees that haven't been included would be, if we move forward, the architectural fees to get it to where we can actually build out and get state approved plans. Sheer Construction has their own architect. They said that they could do the project for $15,000, and PRA gave us an estimate of close to $52,000 for them to get us to a full plan set. So total cost without architectural fees for the 209 building with district office relocation with value engineering would be approximately $1.1 million. Also from that meeting, I had heard some comments in regards to, what VE was done. We had valued engineered the exterior metal panel for LP siding, which is still a durable material. That came out to approximately $150,000. And then the canopies were $33,000. So I got the updated budget back. If we included what we took out for value engineering, the facade, the exterior would be $556,000. The interior renovations would be $904,000. Same with the same architectural fees. So the total cost without the fees is roughly $1.5 million. So the budget with the value engineering would save approximately $375,000. We also went over during that meeting where we sat in the referendum in terms of the budget. That's how it's been playing out. We are currently, the available budget from the referendum is a little over $1 million. That included the Project Win and the Wainwright. So that is actual what we have available to date. And then referendum interest earnings on the money is roughly about 1.2 million. And the budget that was shared with the B&G committee at that time still included $350,000 in contingencies for the continued projects that are happening in the district this summer and into the following year. So that's what I wanted to share to kind of get everybody that maybe wasn't at the meeting up to date on where we were at. And now I would open up to questions or further discussion. So.
My personal take on it is for $31,000, we put the awnings in. The entrances really ought to be protected because they're going to be secured. People will be standing outside. They should be sheltered from the elements. They're not grandiose features. They're functional and they just add a look to the building that is pleasant.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think if we're going to do it, kind of like the theme that I've been saying since we've started talking about this, if we're going to do it, let's just do it right and get it all done. So we don't come back, 6 years from now, 10 years from now, or whatever the case is, even a year from now and go, I wish we would have done this. Like we've seen in different buildings in different scenarios. So if we're going to do it, let's just do it. And I'm excited to see how this all turns out.
I think Taylor, for you and Barry, I'm making those comments too. Dan and I did think by showing it to you this way, I think essentially what we have is like the VE price. It's probably not going to get any lower than that. The other price, it's probably not going to get any higher than that. So we at least have a window that if you want like the awnings, or some of those things back in. It doesn't mean we go all the way to the 374. It just means it could be somewhere in there as we work through that process. But really did feel like, given the feedback from the committee level, that we should show you both of those.
I'm not familiar enough with the Hardy Plank products. I mean, I know roughly what it is, and I've seen it in a couple of places, but how will that look on this building? Is it going to be kind of they used that there, or is it going to fit with the rest of the look of the building?
I would say it would fit. It would look nice. You kind of see it. The best example of it right now is the new eye clinic across from Gooseberry's that has a mixture of stone, that LP siding has brick, and that truly looks, it looks nice. I know at our clinic in Lyons there, we have a stone with the LP siding as well. And it's been extremely durable there. It is used very commonly on office buildings at where the new next to where Jimmy John's and that building and that's all LP siding with stone as well. So it's a very common commercial product to use. I was actually shocked when they told me that it was roughly $150,000 more to do the metal panel.
And the metal panel is like a corrugated look, and this would be like an 8-inch lap siding.
Yeah, so if up close, it'll look different than what Karcher is, but from a distance, you'll just see the same, color essentially.
Maintenance wise, they've got about the same lifespan between the metal panel and the Hardy Plank.
Maybe about every 7 to 10 years, but other than that, maintenance wise, it's fine.
Dan, is the metal paneling that you're referring to, that's on the ends of the Karcher building, right? The black panels?
Yes.
So
yep.
like just for you to be able to see, Barry, like which ones on Karcher that are those panels, it's, at the very end of both academic wings, there's like black sections. That's that paneling.
Yeah, in the stairwells, on the exterior stairwells.
Does the sides of the building, I like the front, the sides of the building, does that match the Karcher look? Yeah, like the orange and the tan paneling, or not the paneling, but the near the windows. Is that what Karcher's
that would be that copper penny paneling that's above the current Karcher gym and in their window sections. And then it's reusing the stone from the Karcher build out and reusing the brick as well So it's kind of the same theme. I mean, PRA is who designed it for us to fit in with the campus.
Is the roof line this clear, Dan, or do we have rooftops over there? I don't recall.
We don't have rooftops.
Okay, so it is a clear line of view like this then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's a reason I'm not on buildings and grounds. And the first reason would be, what do you mean exactly by value engineering?
That's when you take, the plan and you kind of look at things that maybe they over-engineered or they thought really looked nice. And then you kind of circle back with MEPs, with different contractors, and ask them, what's a different product? What's something that would give us the same, value that maybe would cost less?
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah.
And where would the parking be for this then?
Well, the parking would be along Perkins for, staff. Currently there is, I counted again today, from what I could see through the snow, 17 slotted parking there. And then when we fully get the approval for the Wainwright abandonment, there would be parking in the front that would be slotted as well. And I think there was approximately another 6 to 7 slots that could be in the front that we would probably keep open to visitor parking and handicap parking.
What about if there's board meetings and stuff where we have a lot of people come? I guess it'd be parking on Market Street then, or?
They could either park on the street, or at that point when Wainwright is abandoned, there would be approximately 100-yard walking path to the large parking lot at Karcher as well.
Okay, thanks.
I think it's been a long time coming. That's the existing building has served its purpose, but there are just too many modern amenities that it's lacking from almost a legal standpoint, that I think this is the right way to go for us.
Agreed.
Okay, this is an action item. So are we ready to have a motion?
Well, I guess that's a good question. Steve and Dan, how do you need this motion put? I mean, if we want to put some things in it yet, I mean, should we just put a not to exceed number on it, or how do you want to move forward with this?
Yeah, I think if you wanted to say, that essentially it's the recommendation of the board to move forward and within the price points as sort of as discussed, because this would be the low version and the other one would be the high version. And that, I think that would give Dan and I certainly the direction, that this is the window within which we're working, knowing that, we've had really good success working with both PRA and Scherer right now as partners. And so, we've looked for every dollar that we can save along the way, and we'll continue to do so. So however you want to make, however somebody would want to make that motion, I think that gives us enough of a scope. It's a little bit like a little bit of a watered down sort of GMP process that we use with Karcher. So you could say a not to exceed price. I think we could work with that. Dan, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that's what I would recommend, a not to exceed price that you feel comfortable with. I also was going to ask, because we haven't locked in who's going to fully design for the build plans, if the recommendation from the board, if it would be Scherer or PRA.
Scherer can do full engineering and architectural drawings for 15 grand? Or they're just doing design build?
Some of it would be design build, and some of it would be full architectural plans. Because they did Scherer actually did the plans for Project Wind downstairs as well, because it was the most cost effective.
Kevin, what are your thoughts on this?
I think that it's a far more less effective way to try and plan with shear than it is, a more effective way to plan with shear than it is to have PRA design the whole thing.
Well, it sounds like your plans are already kind of in place. So why wouldn't you use shear? I mean, I love PRA,
Right.
but it's
Exactly.
35 grand, right? I mean, they're 36 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is this an
PRA
additional $52,000, or does this include what we've already paid them for renderings and things like that?
that does not include them.
No, I think,
Paid them. No.
yeah, that's additional.
Yeah,
I
well,
think
that's,
shear kind of design build a thing.
that's kind of what I figured. So I would put in the form of a motion that we move ahead with the relocation of the administrative building to the 209 building using shear construction for the design and architectural fees. If the project costs not to exceed 1.5 million, fully anticipating it will come in less than that.
Second, Taylor.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any more, are there any, it's getting late. Is there any discussion or are there any more questions?
Just one quick real question. Dan, you may have said this, I apologize. What's your timeline? Since we're going to approve this tonight, what's the potential timeline for this to be completed from start to finish?
Essentially, what we've been working on right now is we'd have about another month of basically design. We would try to shoot for the middle of March for those plans to be submitted to the state. They returned the plans most recently. It took 3 weeks. So we could possibly get state approved stamp plans by the beginning of April, which would put us in timeline to start the project first part of June. With an anticipated finish date of, I'm crossing my fingers, but by September. It's a lot to do in that short period of time, but I think while we've got everything going on in the district and we have everybody in tune to what we're doing, we would shoot to have this done for the fall of next year.
For the school year.
Excellent. Cool.
That would be fantastic. On the off chance it doesn't fly, though, what happens to the Fox River Consortium when we have to start up in the fall?
Barry, I mean, it's a great question too. And I was going to just kind of add that for the whole board's information that we are, as you know, we're already working on the downstairs for Project WIN. Oscillero will be relocated out into elementary schools where we want our small children to be. And we will work very closely with Fox River because they too are in anticipation of this as a possibility. And so as soon as tomorrow morning, we'll start working with their director, Sue, to make sure that we're working hand in glove with her so that if there's an unforeseen, we have a backup plan for sure.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, and what the anticipation was that with talking with Ben and Joe is to work as diligently as can to get the interiors finishes done at 209 building. And if it does progress farther into the fall with the exterior, that we could still then be at the site, working if they're still finishing up some brickwork or some stonework. But they're well aware of the timeline, and we are going to, now that we've got full board approval, truly, put that pen to paper and then get everything in place. So
I'm probably just saying this to make myself feel better, but if we can make sure the front or at least one of the entrances is completed for safety, and we just don't want all that debris being tracked into a new building. So.
Yep.
Okay.
Are there costs involved with the district office becoming the consortium site?
Yeah, so I've met with Susan. There's very minimal that she would need to do. There is some more of the 3/4 height walls like that we've already done. And then we were going to put some new carpeting in the areas and then freshen up, the painting. Most of that has been already done, but we're not looking at more than, $35,000 to $40,000 for what she needs to have done. So.
Okay, other questions?
And are we borrowing to do this or where? I mean, I think you showed us a slide that showed where available funds were coming from. So are we going to be?
The main idea, Diane, is to be
Okay.
able to use the dollars that have been allocated for the construction purposes of the buildings. And so that is part of the frugal nature of kind of all of the projects combined as we look at all the elementaries and the middle school and all the work that's being done in the district as a whole to stay within the cap of what's been allotted. And as you can see here, we're feeling pretty good, rough, kind of to where we stand as a whole.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Anything else? Okay, then I think we're ready to vote. Toby?
Roseanne,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, sounds great. All right, our next meeting will be March 8th for the regular school board meeting.
Yep, and just my apologies for Toby and I staying with the 8th, but repeating February. It's supposed to be March 8th on the future next date, so sorry about that.
Yeah, I think we all caught that. So, okay, I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, Taylor.
Then moved and seconded that we adjourn, and instead of a roll call, it's just those that are ready to adjourn, say aye.
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 Opposed? No. Okay, we are adjourned. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Thanks for the late night, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.